everybody. This is the Arsenal Way podcast. My name is Hammad. You can follow me on Twitter, and I have a special guest with me today. This guy has been basically how I've gotten into this podcast thing, and hopefully I'll have him over for many more years to come. Uh, this is Yankee Gunner. Say hello, everybody.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great, man. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, Hammad, great to talk to you.
Okay. So mate, we're just gonna have a casual conversation, and we're just gonna talk about Arsenal. We're gonna talk about how things are progressing, and let's just dive into some of the questions that maybe others don't, or maybe you wouldn't possibly say on your podcast. The manager. Uh, yeah. So I know you're not a fan, and I'm one of the guys that said that you know give him a season, maybe he'll bring something consistency to our attack and our defense, and well, all of that has gone to hell. So, what do you basically see in an Arsenal coach before Emery was appointed? What did you want to see, and what exactly did you get, and how were you disappointed in that?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I think there are really three principal things that you want a coach to do. And that's given the fact that we've moved away from the manager model to the head coach model, right? So no longer really in charge of transfer targets, no longer really in charge of squad building. I mean, he really is focused on what happens on the pitch.
Yes. Yeah.
So obviously the number one thing is results. I think if the results are good, then everything else can be subordinated to that. So if you are winning every single game, it doesn't matter if you're winning them 1-0 with an own goal off a missed penalty kick. It's fine. So number one is results. Yeah, I wish as well. Number two is the style of play. I do think that it is fair to say that, look, I love Arsenal. I will love Arsenal if they play terrible football and get relegated. I will love Arsenal if they play beautiful football and win the title. But I also watch Arsenal for enjoyment, for entertainment, for the fact that it gives me something aesthetic, right? I mean, the good fortune of being at the Emirates every week, or bad fortune, depending on what's happening there. And I don't necessarily even have the good fortune of going to my local and being surrounded by, a huge group of friends and having a drink. I have a family. I don't always get to go to these sorts of things. So for me, there is the aesthetic of watching the game. And I think it is fair to suggest that sport is entertainment. And therefore, the answer is in the word, like it should be entertaining at some level. So there's results are the primary factor. The second is, are you enjoying watching your team play? And then the third and final one is the coach doing other things around the club that enhance the club, like giving chances to young players, moving the academy players through. And some of that is also enforced, I think, a little bit by the power structure behind the coach. But I think the coach has a real role in that. So what I would say when it comes to Emery is that the third spoke in the wheel, I think he's done a relatively good job with. I think you could say that using Guendouzi a lot last season was really smart, and we're seeing that bear fruit. I think this season he's done a really nice job focusing on the academy. I think that's not in small part thanks to the fact that Ljungberg is sitting next to him and that he's been encouraged to do that, but he is doing it and he deserves credit for it. But I don't think that the results have been good enough to offset what is a really troubling style of football and performance on the pitch. And I think that the underlying metrics that point to the fact that we're not playing great football suggest that we may be facing a similar swoon later in the season that we faced last season. So I was sort of willing to give him another season based on our summer transfer business. I didn't necessarily want to, because I think the way he finished last season is really worrying, and the fact that throughout the season he failed to implement a clear style at any point. But I was willing to write that off as being a squad issue. Now I think the excuses are getting harder to look for. I realize the last sort of hurdle to get over in terms of really saying he should go would be seeing how he does when Bellerin and Tierney are in, when Holding is back, when Lacazette is back. But I also think it's unfair to say that a coach can only be evaluated in the best case scenario where all players are available to him. Coaching at the top flight means dealing with injuries and suspensions and egos and clashes of personality. And I think in terms of how he's handled Ozil, and in terms of how he's managed injuries, and in terms of the style that he's tried to put on the he's shown that he's struggling with all those things. So for me, I mean, it's an understatement to say I'm not convinced. I realize while you're sitting third in the table, that may not be the best time to be complaining, but Arsene Wenger finished second in the table the year Leicester won the title, and despite that being our best finish since the Invincible season, It was
It was
a
pretty.
terrible season. It was failure. So, the
It,
same could be
it,
said here.
it was awful, to
Yeah.
put it mildly.
Yeah.
So look, you said that we should have a balance between style and results, and that as a fan, one should, value enjoyment. So don't you think winning is enjoying the game, watching your team perform at the top level and winning every single game, regardless of how they play sometimes? Do you think that it's mandatory for Arsenal to, I don't know, play attacking football, or do you think that we should rather mix it up with our defensive style of play?
You know, Look, I will admit that I like attacking football, and I'd much rather see us try to win games 4-3 than 1-0. I know there are people that disagree with that. But Hammad, I think the strategy, the style of football has to emphasize the squad, right? Like, if you have a sports car, you're not going to try to go off-roading and drive down the side of a mountain. And similarly, if you have a Humvee, you're not going to try to win a road race. So I think when you have Aubameyang and Lacazette, have Pepe, when you have some of these bright young wingers that are coming through, when you have some technical midfielders that are maybe better going forward than going backward, like I would emphasize pressing, final third possession, chance creation. I would be building the team to play that way because you can pack as many bad defenders in your defensive third as you want. They're not going to defend well. We don't have great defenders, natural defenders, and certainly since the fullbacks have been missing, our center backs are a weak link. I don't think we necessarily have, nor are we using the midfield properly to support the central defense. So, I don't see any point in playing a conservative style. And look, moreover, when you watch Liverpool, when you watch Manchester City, and I realize City are struggling a little bit right now, but they are the teams that create the most chances and score the most goals. It just so happens they are also some of the best defensive teams in England. And I don't think that is an accident. Other than Atletico Madrid, right? Yeah, Atletico Madrid. Atleti. I don't think you can look around world football and see too many big clubs that are really good while also emphasizing a defensive structure and defensive style of play. So for me, no, I don't think as a big club with lots of attacking talent that you should be targeting 1-0 victories. I think it also, what it does? It increases the possibility of negative variance. What I mean by that is if you take 40 shots and concede 3, you're probably going to win. You can lose. Of course you can lose. Look at the Spurs-City draw. I mean, Spurs and City got a draw where Spurs got annihilated. So it can happen. But if you have 40 shots and you concede 3, the negative variance you need to wind up not getting a result there is massive. But if you take 12 shots and concede 15 shots, even if your chances are better, even if you're overall kind of playing better, you are increasing the likelihood that some negative variance event can take those points from you. A deflection that goes in, a goalkeeping howler, a trip in the box that VAR doesn't overturn and you get a penalty. So for me, you avoid negative variance by keeping the ball far from your goal and in the opposition third, and we just don't control games that way.
Yeah, and you talk about the negative variance, and I agree with that to some extent. When we're concentrating on attack, we go gung-ho in attack, and when we're trying to defend, we can't defend because we have shit defenders. So, yeah, we're kind of stuck in the middle here. Elliot, you mentioned about us trying to play an attacking football style, and I concur with that. I don't really mind attacking football, but I'm not against defensive either. I love watching Juve play because of this. I think that their mentality and how they approach games defensively is fantastic, even despite Sarri being here. You should have seen the intro game. But one of the core problems that Arsenal suddenly have is a toothless attack. People concentrate on the defense a lot, and they say that we have shit defenders, and David Luiz can't defend, and Socrates is ass, and all of that. I understand that, but we can't attack. We average less shots than we did under Arsene Wenger. If you probably know this, and we can't connect our front three with one another. Neither do we have the personnel available in midfield to do that, because I think Emery emphasizes wide areas more than the central of the pitch in the final third. And so, do you think that us being toothless in attack is down to the manager, down to the players, or down to that one specific one that we won't dare mention maybe later on in the podcast?
Look, I think that different coaches have different strengths. strengths working with types of players, strengths working with types of egos, strengths working with, so some managers are great at defensive and structured football. Some managers are great at, free-flowing attacking football. There's all different types of coaches with different types of skill sets and expertise. I think that Emery's vision of how he wants us to progress the play is in the half spaces and on the wings. Now, to his credit, he has not had fullbacks who were really skilled at doing that. He tried to fix that by going with wingbacks in the back three with Maitland-Niles and Kolasinac back half of last season. He tried to do it in true back four with Maitland-Niles and Kolasinac playing roles that they really are not suited for as true fullbacks. He's split the midfielders wide. He's pushed the play out to the wings, and very, very little is being created through the middle. And as you mentioned, Ozil is relevant in that conversation. But I don't think that it has to be the case, because when you look at how we've played in the Europa League, and particularly the game against Standard, we went with a much more balanced 4-2-3-1. We had a double pivot with two players that looked very comfortable working together as partners in a central midfield in Torreira and Ceballos. We had Willock, who's willing to get into the box and make those secondary runs like an Aaron Ramsey at the 10. We did a lot more of the play through the middle of the pitch, the top of the 18, a lot more central chances created through central spaces, and late runs into the box from midfielders. I just look at how we played against United, and there were times when, we'd have an attack or even a counterattack, and there'd be 3 Arsenal players against 6 United defenders. And then once again, at the weekend, it was the same thing. I mean, there was one moment where Callum Chambers got the ball on the right, and there's not an Arsenal player within 15 yards of him. Yeah, and there's 3 Arsenal players in the box against 6 defenders, and no one for him to give the ball to other than an aimless cross. So, I do think that it is a philosophical issue in terms of the extent to which he's willing to commit players to the attack, the extent to which he's willing to leave that central space a little more vulnerable by pushing those midfielders into the attacking third. And maybe he just trusts his defense so little that he's overcompensating. But whatever the issue is, he has not been able to get us to attack fluently. And I should caveat that by saying that he has done so in the Europa League, in that Standard game. But as simplistic as it sounds, we just pushed a lot of resources into the attacking third, pushed them back, and controlled the game with possession in their half.
And we did it really well. I kind of enjoyed the Europa League games more than our league matches. I don't think if you agree with this. They were more balanced.
Yeah, they're much better.
They're much better. I actually look forward to those than the league matches, and I'm actually shitting it for the Sheffield game, by the way. It's going to be a horror show. Okay, Elliot. So I'm gonna go towards Lucas Torreira for a minute. We know Emery's hypothetical love for Granit Xhaka. I mean, it's probably more than Leonetta at this point, and I feel that he's someone that Emery values in terms of his experience and in terms of his control in possession. But Torreira for Sampdoria was so elegant and so good at that number 6 position. He used to cover ground. He used to play the ball forward. And ever since he stepped into our side, I haven't seen Torreira make that many progressive passes, and that's something that worries me. And I feel that Emery doesn't play him because of his physical limitations and the height issue, which can be, emphasized by him wanting Steven Nzonzi because of their, thank God for that.
Yeah, reportedly.
Terrible. So, why do you feel that Emery constantly has this admiration for Granit Xhaka despite him being basically a liability?
So it's a good question. I think, to be fair, I think Xhaka has qualities that can be beneficial. I just certainly don't think we're seeing them emphasized in the way he's being used right now. I don't know that the way he's being used is good for the player either, but there may be a hint in some of the comments that Raul, or was it Vinay? Can't remember, made. No, it was Raul recently in a fan forum where he said that Emery picks the players who train hard and have a good training session and work hard in training. Now, look, I am all for the fact that people should work hard. They should put in effort. They should put in energy, that if you're well paid and at the top of your industry, you should be busting your ass. Having said that, I do think top-level sport is far more about talent than it is about application. Lionel Messi, there are all kinds of stories about how he trains, not all of them complimentary. He's still the best player to ever have played. The way I look at it, I can understand why a coach would want to put his trust in players that train hard and that really put in a shift in training and really seem committed in training. But that to me is a very Sunday league attitude towards professional football. Professional football is about big egos. It's about superstars. It's about players with talent that is transcendent. And Granit Xhaka may be one of those players that is just a master of taking training seriously. There was a joke that he two-footed someone in training at one point. One of those kind of things where he's going to ground and making challenges and never takes a second off. And there's the performance team prizes Xhaka as one of the hardest trainers they've ever seen in the gym. Just nobody works like him. And that's great, that commitment. And we want that from professionals. But it's not a replacement for the talent and the skill set and the understanding and the intelligence that you need on the pitch. And I just wonder if maybe Unai Emery is one of these people that looks at his players and the guys that really put in the shift and really bust their ass, because Emery's a grinder. He's a worker, and he wants workers. And I'm sorry, but that's, workers are only going to get you so far. And it may not seem fair, but in this world, those transcendent talents are the ones that make the difference. And I just think Emery has shown an interest in working more with the hard-working players than the transcendently talented ones.
And I felt that you mentioned about being a talented player, and Lucas Torreira, I don't think he's less talented. I think he's he's actually our best number 6, to be honest. And he defends the wide area as well. He defends and he's rather good when he's facing the play, not when he's chasing it, because he lacks the athleticism to get back. So mate, I'm just gonna go towards our midfield one more time, and I'm gonna focus on the league and then towards Arsenal as well. You probably have noticed this trend that's certainly come up recently, that the Premier League is facing a change of style in their deepest midfielders. Predominant ball players are not a rarity actually. They are a rarity, sorry. City would play with Rodri, and Chelsea will play with Jorginho. Nobody else has a predominant ball player. Nobody else. We do, but we have one so flawed that I don't even call him a 6. And I feel that the game changing in the way that people are bringing in more well-rounded midfielders that can do multiple roles in the center of the pitch, in terms of athleticism, in terms of creation, and in terms of style, that those predominant ball players have become redundant. So do you feel that we should also move in that direction, because it's holding us back clearly?
So here's the interesting thing, right? You'd say, well, who's going to progress the ball? Who's going to progress the ball? Well, here's the funny thing. If you are winning the ball further up the pitch, you don't need that guy to progress the ball. You need him to bail you out if your press doesn't work, right? So, I think there is a really interesting tension between old-style technical midfielders who can progress the ball and what Liverpool do, which is they just put a bunch of fairly athletic players in midfield who can go win the ball back and give it to the talented guys on the outside. I think athleticism and the ability to switch from defense to attack quickly is a lot more important than the passing range that Shaq is prized for. I think, the fact that he is so slow on the turn, that he is so vulnerable to the press, that's killer for us. The fact that he can't shield the back four if he has to run back towards his goal, and that he defends by grabbing and reaching and sticking out a leg. A team like ours shouldn't be under the kind of pressure we're under regularly. But I think part of the reason we're under that pressure is because we have no way to stop teams from progressing the ball into our defensive third, especially when we split those midfielders wide and go with a flat midfield 3. I look at how football is changing, and what I see, especially in the Premier League, is that more chances now are created by other teams making mistakes, by capitalizing on errors in transition. The days of Arsene Wenger's 40 pass moves that lead to a goal, you just don't see lots of that anymore. There's a lot more. I mean, when we played Liverpool, their average possession started in our half. Their average possession. That means they didn't have to progress the ball. What do you need? What do you need or a Xhaka for if you're getting the ball 45 yards from your goal, from the goal you're attacking? You don't. So, I think what Torreira would give us back there is just a little more of the ability to fight fires if the press doesn't work, a little bit more ability to track a man who's running back towards our goal to prevent that out ball that Xhaka doesn't prevent. And I'd just play more front-footed. I'd play more pressing front-footed football. But what we also saw with Torreira when he played with Ceballos against Standard is, in a game where we're going to have so much possession in the attacking third, he had a fairly quiet game against Standard. But what did he do? He got it. He gave it to Ceballos. Ceballos progressed the ball. He stayed there to keep things safe. Yeah, mop up. That role doesn't have to be, Xhaka is a hub. You want to know the thing that I think will tell you all you need to know about our style? Xhaka routinely will play the most passes in our team, other than maybe a center back, which is a bad sign too. But like in the really good teams, that shouldn't be necessary. You shouldn't need the deepest midfielder to start the play because you can win the ball in other areas of the pitch.
You see, I remember Jurgen Klopp saying something along the lines of what you just said. He said, he was asked in a press conference that, why don't you have a predominant creative 10 player? And he said, we don't need one. Our press is enough to create chances. And I think that's really interesting because I feel that that's a sign of a team that is playing for one another and that is trying their best to, display their manager's philosophy on the pitch. That helps not only the players, that helps individually and as a team because everyone's bought in. Everyone's trying their best to implement what the manager wants them to do. At Arsenal, I don't know what the manager wants us to do, Elliot. I really don't. I see us being defensive in some games. I see us being naive in others. And I see us acting like we're Seville. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to any Seville fans that are listening. But that's a fact. We're the third biggest club in England, and we play like we're a mid-table side at times. We are scared. Even at home, we are afraid. Our football has stopped being from a proactive to reactive, and that is a reflection of the coach that we have. Do you think that this is a fair argument against the manager, that he's gotten Arsenal to the position that an opposition would say, hey, fuck it, let's attack them?
It's interesting, right? Because I think your style of play tells the opposition how they should respond. And so I think Unai Emery is a very good nullifier. I think that's where his strength is. I think that's why he's been a good cup coach, and I think that's why he's been reasonably good at mid-table teams. Because when he can set a team up to nullify what the opposition want to do, I think he's reasonably decent at it. I mean, even in the Liverpool game, which was sort of embarrassing the way we approached it, and I do think it was embarrassing the way we approached it, but I also think you could say that it was effective for large stretches in nullifying what Liverpool wanted to do. And before they got the corner kick goal, they were starting to look pretty frustrated, if you ask me. I think he nullified them well, and that shows up in some of our big game performances last season as well. I think where he's really struggled is against the bottom 14, when he has to take superior talent and impose it on another team. And he doesn't like to do that. He likes to react to what that team is doing and try to play off that. And I think in the Premier League now, there's enough balance that if you invite those other Premier League teams onto you, they can hurt you. I also just think, frankly, it used to be in the Premier League that these other teams just had no ambition to come and play football against you when you went up against them. And they'd sit deep, and they had no intention of trying to get anything but a 0-0. That's not the case now. These teams understand that they can get something if they're organized and if they attack and pick their spots. And, I look at the Watford game. We're 2-0 up. That's a game where Watford could have just hung their head and given up. But we basically sat back and said, come play a little football in our defensive third. And, at the end of the day, this is still a kid's game, Hammad. Like, they're still out there either having fun or not having fun. And I realize that's oversimplifying it. But if you invite a bunch of professional footballers to come camp out in your defensive third, in their attacking third,
they're going to annihilate you.
Yeah, they're going to have some fun. They're going to perk up and they're going to want to play. And that may sound like an oversimplification, but I do think that it's a lot more fun to go attack someone than it is to sit back and defend for 45 minutes at a time. So, yes, I think he's a reactive coach. I think that can be very good in big games. I think it's very, very bad in small games. And ultimately, if Arsene Wenger had one thing going for him, even towards the end, maybe not so much, but towards the end, he understood how to get his free-flowing attacking players to go have fun and pound the crap out of weaker teams. And you cannot finish top four. I mean, I don't care if you finish top of the top 6 table. If you don't routinely beat the bottom 14, you can't finish in the top 4.
Yeah, because most of our points are from those bottom 14.
They have to be.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
you got 28 games against those teams.
yeah, the other 6 games don't really matter. Sorry, not six,
No.
12.
Well, 12, but
That's
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
For us, it's 6 because we lose 6 of them anyway. So,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
I guess
okay,
technically it's 10, right? Because you can't play yourself. So
we'd probably be sitting a whole night watching if we did. So,
yeah, good luck.
good luck with that. So Elliot, I'm gonna focus on our squad makeup for a bit. We brought in some great players, and Nicolas Pepe and Martinelli was a great surprise. I know you're a fan, so I'm just gonna say a few things on that, and I feel that our squad basically lacks the athleticism that someone of the club of our size needs. I see a lot of our players as as huge issues. I see them as having problems that not one coach is going to be able to solve. And look, sorry, I'm annoyed. Anyways, our back four. Kolasinac is basically a tractor. He moves so slowly that it annoys me. And when you couple that with Granit Xhaka, it annoys me more. David Luiz is basically he's basically a self-destruct button. He can play really great on his day, and he can play awful on another. Socrates, hit and miss. Maitland-Niles, he's not a defender. Torreira, he doesn't play. Granit Xhaka isn't physical. Guendouzi is starting to develop that because of Unai Emery, and Ceballos is a pushover. Ozil himself isn't athletic enough. The only players that I feel are athletic and being able to contribute from that aspect of the squad are the fullbacks, Bellerin and Tierney, Joe Willock,
Mm.
Lucas Torreira himself, and Aubameyang and Lacazette. I don't feel anybody else has the athleticism to play this aggressive, pressing, passing,
I think
dribbling
Pepe
style.
has athleticism when he wants to demonstrate it.
Yeah, but he's not demonstrating it, and that's the problem. I'll come to that.
Mm.
There's a big issue, anyways. So I feel that the lack of athleticism in key areas, like in our defense, in the middle, these areas really contribute to us struggling away from home, and they contribute to us struggling in terms of controlling games. Because I feel that we don't control games at all, Elliot. We haven't seen it last season. We didn't see it this season. So I'm basically giving Unai Emery, well, he failed this in this accord. So what do you think is the problem here in terms of athleticism? Do we need more of it in certain
Mm.
situations, or do you think that we should, persist with our technicality, so to say?
That's a really tough question. I mean,
Yeah, I neck in
I,
my head.
yeah, well, because I don't think that you have to have a bunch of
Runners.
Contes out on the pitch. I don't think that's necessary. I mean, I do think you need technical quality, and I do think you need players that can receive on the half turn and play one touch passing. Um, I am more of the opinion that we underrate the extent to which things like pressing is about coordination and organization. I think part of the problem for us is we don't have a coordinated press and we don't have a coordinated defensive system. And so it winds up being one guy running around chasing the ball. Well, yeah, if you're going to have one guy running around chasing something, then you need Conte because Conte can cover the ground of two players. But, if you look at how Manchester City press or if you look at how Liverpool press, it really is about coordination, cutting off passing lanes, is cutting off angles, using the boundary as a defender, just intelligent understanding of space and distances and angles that we don't do. So I think, and where you do need that athleticism at times, I think, is once you turn the ball over to be able to burst past that first line of defense and then get into hurtful spaces. And we definitely have that. I mean, when Bellerin and Tierney are back, we have that. I think Aubameyang can do that. I certainly think Pepe and Saka can do that. I don't think Lacazette can do that so much, but he can be physical and hold the ball up and then turn and face and finish. But I don't know that I feel that physicality or athleticism is so important. I mean, Guendouzi, for example, I don't know that you'd say he's athletic, but he has tremendous aerobic endurance. He can run
Yeah.
for 90 minutes. And when he wants to, he intercepts the ball brilliantly. He cuts off passing lanes brilliantly. That's something he can be very, very good at. So I think coordination is really much more of an issue for me than athleticism. I felt that we lacked it more last season, because if Aubameyang wasn't out on the wing, you'd have a Wobie on one wing or Mkhitaryan on the other, or, a Wobie and God knows who. And, then you had a lot of plodding players in wide positions who couldn't go past the defense. I think you have to have some pace and athleticism to at least threaten a back line that you could run by them, that they could be beaten for pace. If the back line knows you can't run past them, I think you give them a very easy job. And we saw that when we had Giroud up front, that a lot of times defenses could key on him. The central defenders would just, buffet him and beat him up a little bit, and they could push just that 5 yards further up the pitch that they can push, that compresses everything, closes down the distance, makes it easier for them to turn defense into attack. When you have pace, they can't do that. So I do think you need. Yeah, go ahead.
I think we use Giroud like a wall pass. Yeah, our attacking players used to center around him and use him as a wall pass. They give the ball to him, he'd give it back and create space, and something like that was easy to nullify. But I feel that when we are a team that gets countered a lot, we used to have issues with transitions under Arsene. We had issues with transition under Emery. So I think that having athleticism in the middle of the park, helps in that, because recovery runs, we can't recover quick enough. We just can't.
Yeah, but what about who gets countered a lot? Liverpool and City, Spurs. Like the teams that press a lot give up very high XG chances against them, because if you can get past it, you are going to give up chances. I remember Barcelona under Pep. They gave up almost nothing, but what they did give up was very high quality chances, because if you could get past them, you had space to operate. I think that is the trade-off of pushing players into the attacking third and defending on the front foot and playing counter press and playing in transition, is that if teams get past you, you are going to be a bit vulnerable. Now, what Liverpool have done is they've dropped off a little bit more and realized that they have the quality in their fullbacks and their wide forwards to just beat teams with less intense pressing, that they can just control possession and dominate them with the ball, which is a bit of a change for them, and that's actually improved them defensively. But I will tell you, if you look at who the best defensive team is right now, it's Manchester United. They have the best defense, them or Liverpool, but I think it might be United by advanced metrics. Yeah. And I don't think anybody's blown away by United. I think it's the simple fact that they just do a lot of defending. But for me, no, I am not super worried about being countered. I'm worried about being countered when you press badly. We lack the coordination to press effectively. That if you do it well, the counterattack is always a threat, but much less of a threat. And look, Hammad, any strategy implemented poorly will result in a poor outcome. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, fair enough. And
let me just say one more thing about athleticism, just really quickly. I'm not saying it's not a good thing to have, but I think we have had a big problem with not being able to play one-touch football, with players that want way too much time, way too many touches, way too slow on the turn. I would like our midfield to be more technical than athletic. I love the way Guendouzi receives on the half turn and gives it. I think Ceballos takes way too long on the ball to let it go and is way too one-footed. That's been a big issue for me. Xhaka, again, too slow to move it. So I'd rather have my athleticism in the attacking third, in the front three, and have real technical quality in midfield. And then you just let Torreira mop up. But, that does not seem to be the methodology in play here.
Yeah, it doesn't. But see, Elliot, I'll raise a counterpoint to that.
Fire away.
Let's look at Chelsea's midfield for a second. And Conte is basically the defensive midfielder. He's the guy mopping up everything, like you said, like Torreira does. Jorginho is the one who's influencing the final third. He's mopping up himself in front of Conte, but he's constantly using his passing options and his creativity as pressure. And then that's Guendouzi, by the way. The third is Mason Mount. Constant off-the-ball runs, constant recoveries, constant pressing. That is Joe Willock. You see where I'm going with this?
Mm.
So that midfield, in my opinion, has the perfect combination of athleticism, creativity, and the defensive structure to make sure that we create and defend transitions properly. So I think it's doable. I'm not saying that we just put in like a billion Contes in the middle of the pitch and try to counter everything and have them running around in the wing like Sarri did, unfortunately. I'm just saying that the right blend of athleticism, technicality, can really, really elevate this Arsenal midfield, even if it is young and lacks experience.
Look, I don't rule it out, and don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I don't want athletic players, but like I look at Joe Willock, and Joe Willock switches off defensively. Joe Willock fails to track. You know, again, all the athleticism in the world won't change a lack of coordination off the ball. I think we we focus so much on individual player quality, but like look at the Watford game. I'll just use this as an example again. I don't care how bad you think our team is at its worst. It is not 31 shots against you against Watford bad.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it's not. I don't disagree that athleticism is important. I think the problem is, you know what we're doing? We're rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic in a way because there's a good enough team there to be playing better football. And for me, it's still about coordination and methodology more than it is about the individual talent. Now, I fully acknowledge that fullbacks can make a big difference in that. And that's something that we're going to have to wait and see.
I think I feel that we're going to keep on arguing about this, so I'm just going to move on because let's agree to disagree. So, Elliot, Nicolas Pepe. The guy has been under constant scrutiny from a lot of fans saying that he isn't producing what they expected. I don't know what they expected, but yeah. I'm just going to point out something from Liverpool, and I'm just going to point out something from Nicolas Pepe, and then I'm going to come back to our esteemed manager.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you're going to enjoy this. Anyways, the first one is Liverpool. What do you see on the right wing when Salah gets the ball? I saw their game last week, and I saw three things happening simultaneously that I absolutely loved that Liverpool do. When Salah gets the ball on the right-hand side or the half space, Trent makes the run outside of him. That creates space for him. Then Henderson makes the half space run again. That creates space for him. Then there's Roberto Firmino that has two defenders constantly occupied and making them think. That, again, makes space for Salah to drive into. Their players are accommodating their wide forwards. That's what Liverpool are so good at doing. They give their wide forwards the platform to be expressive, to be impactful, and to be devastating. What do? We shove Nicolas Pepe on the right wing near the corner flag and give him the ball with no overlap runs, no one supporting him from midfield, and no center back coming close to him to link up play. Is that fair?
No, I mean, of course not. I think the reality with Pepe is he's done a pretty good job progressing the ball. I think that part he's been fine. I would like him starting closer to goal. I think when he's picking up the ball on the halfway line and carrying it into the final third and then very isolated, I don't think he has a lot of options. Now, look, you can't blame the manager for everything. Let me say this, that, you know, he's had some pretty easy shots that he's mishit. He's scuffed some shots. He's been late delivering the ball to runners in the box. You know, he's had some moments where he could do better, and the fault is not the manager, the fault is him. Like, let's not totally exonerate individuals from having to play well. I think his end product has been poor, and a lot of that is him. Mishitting shots, bad technique over shots, too eager to get a shot off, not looking for his teammates, slow to release the ball. That part is on him. The part that is not on him is that he is too often starting too high up, too far back on the pitch, starting moves from the halfway line, that he has not had a player overlapping him that he can give the ball to, that he has not had a midfielder getting close to him where he can exchange passes and run off the last shoulder. That stuff's not on him. That stuff is on the manager. But look, I mean, he got a chance to play that way against Standard, and I thought he was just okay against Standard. So, like, it is perfectly fair to just say this is a very talented player with an impressive skill set who it hasn't clicked for yet. That maybe his confidence is a little low, that he's pressing to make too big of an impression, and the system isn't helping. The system isn't helping. Like, we agree on that. I just think we are sometimes, when we like a player, quick to exonerate them for poor performance by going after a manager who we don't believe in. And while I don't totally believe in Emery, I think part of the struggle is that Pepe is having a system, and part of it is down to the player not performing. And so I think that's a perfectly fair way to look at it. I think Pepe himself will just start playing better. I think it will also help him if the manager starts putting him in better positions, if that makes sense.
the manager has to facilitate, don't you think? The manager is the one who's supposed to give the players the platform to succeed.
Yeah,
And
but
I
they
don't
still
really
can
see
fail.
Emery doing.
Just just because the manager should I'm sorry, right? Like you can have a bad player put in a good position and he can still fail. Now I'm not saying he's a bad player, by the way. That's absolutely not my point. My point is just that he has had some really, really good positions where he has not executed. And I mean, he could have 3 or 4 goals off of some of the shooting chances he's had, and he could have 2 or 3 assists off some of the through ball opportunities he had or easy pass opportunities that didn't quite come off. And how differently would it look if he was sitting on 4 goals and 3 assists right now? So, again, the system still would be letting him down. We disagree there, but I don't think you can just exonerate him from the fact that he has not necessarily executed when the chances have come to him.
So we're going to be sharing the blame. Fair enough.
Fair enough. Yeah,
okay.
Look, and that's always the case, right? I mean, like when Aubameyang missed a penalty at Spurs at Wembley last year. Was it Wembley? Yeah, when he missed a penalty at Wembley last season, like that's not Emery's fault. You know what I mean? When he's not scoring because he's stuck out on the wing with chalk on his boots, that is Emery's fault. When you miss a penalty, that's on the player. Yeah, you have to be able to be objective enough to say this stuff.
And our defenders, does that apply to our defenders as well, when Socrates and Luiz being complete idiots in most of the situations they've been put in?
Yeah. I mean, I think it does, right? because look, I think, again, you have a situation where I don't think either of these guys are good defenders. I think Socrates is just plain bad. Like, I think he's just plain bad. I think Luiz is a player who sort of in the Mustafi mold plays well.
Oh, God,
but
no, please, no.
Well, what I mean is he makes mistakes that are very costly. And I think that's been in his game for a long time. I think Luiz is a very skilled defender and a very skilled player on the ball who has a Rick in him, and that is a problem. But like, if you put Virgil van Dijk at center back for our team, would we defend better? Of course we would, because he's a better player. Just like if you put Messi in our team, we would attack better because he's a better player than what we have. But it would not fully overcome the deficiencies of the system.
Yeah, fair enough. We're gonna go back to Luiz for a second, Elliot. If you remember last season, or the past 6, which you obviously do, whenever Koscielny was at left center back, and the opposition striker would have the ball, there was one thing I absolutely loved about him, and that he would get real close, real tight, and real physical with his striker. He wouldn't let him get the touch off. He wouldn't let him get comfortable with the ball, and he was right up to him. And that made it extremely hard for him to turn, create chances, and get to us, basically stopping their out ball. I think a little bit of that has stopped since David Luiz has come in. I think we've dropped off significantly since he's come into our back line. And for a team like ours that doesn't really have a defined system, and that doesn't really have something called, a big style, that's bad, because we get transitioned a lot. And if we're going to give another center forward the time and chance to turn and create chances, we're going to concede constant shots. Do you think it's wise for Luiz to constantly drop off so much, considering that his partner is an idiot?
Look, let me just be honest. I think that I see the game reasonably well. I'm not saying I see it perfectly. I do a podcast with guys that I think see the game brilliantly. I don't know that I see the game defensively well enough to have really clear, astute observations on what defenders should be doing. I see defenders being put in difficult situations. I see us under a lot more pressure than we should be. When I look at like what Virgil van Dijk does well, for example, I mean, obviously he's dominant in the air, but he wins a lot of duels, and he's always in the right position. But he's also, just not under the constant pressure and trying to defend numerical disadvantages as often as our defenders are. I don't know, though. Look, what David Luiz did where he hauls down, was it Salah he hauls down against Liverpool?
He hauls down Salah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of errors there. There's a lot of errors because the ball only comes in to Firmino because Xhaka stops tracking him. So you can retrace the steps back to these. I mean, the Mustafi play against Crystal Palace last season where he loses Zaha Koscielny goes walkabout and runs up to contest a ball in the air that was already being contested when he should have sat back and there would have been no lane for Zaha to run into. So like the end error, the final error being made by our defenders is often linked back to a series of bad decisions, bad mistakes, bad positioning, tactical deficiencies all the way up the chain. So I'm always loath to just pick on a defender because defending is more of a group activity than it is an individual activity in a lot of ways. But that doesn't change my mind that these guys are not playing well. And I think Luiz is dropping off. And I don't know if that's by instruction or not. It's hard for me to criticize him if I don't know that.
Yeah, because I felt that this isn't something that that Koscielny used to do, because I really loved what he did, because it didn't give the striker that got the ball at his feet time to turn. And one of the reasons that our center backs gets attacked is because of decisions like this. And since we're coming to decisions, Elliot, last Europa League final, I completely lost it. And there's a really hefty Twitter rant that you might enjoy. Just search my name up. So I said that we should blow it up, right? We should just pack everything up. We should send the players out. We should give it up. We should, we should put the reset button and just start over. Because I was constantly tired of players making stupid mistakes. Elliot, it's not even about Emery anymore. It's been years since this has been happening. It's happening under Arsene Wenger. It's happening under him. Our players, experienced players, by the way, they make the most comical, stupid errors that I don't expect any other player to make, even those that are at mid-table teams. They don't even make the kind of errors that we do. Do you see someone like Luiz Dunk making that Mustafi error at the Emirates that allowed Zaha to score? I don't. Do you see?
I mean, I don't, but I don't watch it that much,
Yeah. I'm just making a point.
Yeah,
but see, those mistakes are something that infuriates me, and I don't even know what the reason is that our experienced players feel the need to constantly self-destruct whenever a game is in the balance. So, do you think that this is a culture thing, or is this a quality thing?
I think it's both. I don't think it's culture per se. I mean, it is quality. Look, individual errors are something that have plagued this team. We've been the top of the individual error leading the goal table for a while now. I realize that stat has some issues from a methodology standpoint, but like it is still a problem that we've had for a long time. I think that our players get put under stress a lot, and players that are under stress are going to make more. If you have one really tricky, stressful situation to defend a game, you're not going to make a lot of errors. You might make one every 10 games. If you get put under 10 stressful defensive situations per game, you're going to make one every single game and still be as good as that other defender. You're just being put under pressure more. So if I said to you, defenders make a bad error 5% of the time, that's the average. 5% of the time they make a bad error. Well, if you face 100 defensive situations in a season, you'll make 5 errors. If you face 1,000, you'll make 50 errors. So it at some level, it's just numbers. It's just the fact that if you have an error in you and you're defending more often than you should be, you're going to see those errors come out more. I think that the system can help the players more. I just think it does. And to be fair, I think a funny example is Leicester's title-winning season. I'm not saying we should play like they did, by the way. I don't think we should.
No, please, no. No, we should.
No,
we should.
But Leicester had bad defenders. I really believe that. I don't think that was a good central defensive pairing. I don't think it was a great back four. But they found a system that worked for their talent, and it was workable. And they didn't – the liability they had defensively didn't cost them. Quite the contrary, they wound up winning a title. So I think you can build a system that emphasizes your strengths and conceals your errors, and I just don't think we've done that. Having said that, yeah, look, there's a reason we went and signed Saliba. There's a reason that we have Rob Holding and Chambers still at the club. There's a reason we went out and got David Luiz, although that hasn't solved the problem that we thought, and why we're trying to get rid of Mustafi. I think the club is trying to address it.
And we're trying to sign Upamecano as well.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. So, I mean, yes, I think the club understands it, and they're trying to address it. I mean, we went and got Pepe because we were short of top talent wide players. Why did we sign Aubameyang and Lacazette when we did? Because we'd spent years just trying to make do with Giroud, right? So, I do think that the club has tried to improve the talent at a variety of positions and gotten it right in some cases and gotten it wrong in other cases. But, yeah, better players will make a difference. Liverpool Liverpool were not a title contender because they conceded too many goals. And they went out and spent a fortune on Van Dijk and Alisson, and they got kind of lucky, with the development of TAA and Robertson. And now they are absolutely a title contender and may win it this season, and they won the Champions League last season. Talent matters, and the club is focused on it. But yeah, right now we have a deficiency there.
But mate, it doesn't really answer the fact that why do our experienced players make these decisions? Because I don't really see our young players doing something stupid most of the time. I mean,
bad players do bad things, Hammad. Like I'm not one of these people that believes that like age, experience doesn't necessarily mean you get better. You know what I mean? Like I don't think that. I think we all too often equate these errors with mentality. Making a mistake on a court or a pitch or whatever it is a talent issue. It is a talent issue. Being good at the sport you play is a talent issue, and mentality is part of talent, certainly, but like good players play well and make good choices and decisions on the pitch, and I don't think experience always changes that. Now, yeah, defenders should get better with more experience, as any player should.
All I'm expecting is Socrates not pass to Guendouzi when 3 people are already closing him down at Watford. That's the least that to me can expect.
But that to me is, asking your players to do something they're clearly not comfortable. It's like when we tried to play out of the back with Cech last season. Emery wanted Cech to play out from the back. Like, I got news for you. Some players can't do some things. You can't play counterattacking football with Giroud up front. You can't play out from the back with Cech at the back. Socrates is not a good passer, and he shouldn't. I mean, again, no professional footballer should make that mistake. But again, to my point, Hammad, if you ask Socrates to make 20 passes out from the back a game, he's going to misplace a few of them, and you're going to be under pressure. So don't ask him to do it.
But isn't that basically limiting us at the back because we're not basically giving one of the two
of course it is. You're always constrained in style by the players that you have. I mean, if Liverpool had Kolasinac and Maitland-Niles as their fullbacks, they could not play the style they currently do. Two of the most important players of that team are Robertson and Alexander-Arnold, and that enables them to play the way they do.
Then let's get on to the next one, then the dreaded fullbacks. Elliot, people have been constantly, emphasizing on the fact that we're just going to become this extremely, amazing team all of a sudden when fullbacks will change. So, and we're just gonna start becoming a contender or a top 4 or something like that. Bellerin and Tierney are physical. They're both quality. They're both extremely talented in the terms of athleticism. But do you think that them coming into the fold is going to change us defensively, or is it going to have an impact on our style?
Yeah, I do. I mean, maybe I'm naive, but I think it's going to make a big difference because I think Maitland-Niles went from being pretty good to terrible. I think he got real bad, and to the point where Chambers, who is not a fullback, has looked really good replacing him. I think that Kolasinac has been dreadful. He's a bad passer. He gives the ball away. He's a 0 in ball progression. He has no defensive instincts.
His build is terrible, by the way.
Yeah, and to the extent that in the last game he was just told not to cross the halfway line. I mean, he barely overlapped at all, especially once we took the lead. So, I mean, when you're playing Bournemouth and you're not pushing your fullbacks up like at home, that's an issue. I think we saw a little glimpse of what Tierney's going to give us against Standard because he can just run and has an incredible burst and incredible athleticism. And I think that will make a difference. We have such a bias to play out through the wide spaces. And when those players are some of the worst on the pitch for you, no offense, but that's really been the case. Yeah, it's incredibly stifling. It seems pretty clear to me we are not going to bring Ozil back in the fold. We are not going to play through the middle. We are not going to try to create chances that way. And if we're committed to that, then going from really bad fullbacks to really good fullbacks in modern football is one of the biggest upgrades you can make. So yeah, I do expect that it will make us better both defensively and in attack. And arguably, I actually think maybe more in attack than anything else because I think when Saka or Aubameyang, if he gets pushed back out wide, and Pepe have a player off their shoulder running past them and dragging a defender out there, I think that's going to make a big difference.
And some of that is emphasized by Pep Guardiola spending over 100 million plus on fullbacks. So yeah, that's something to ponder. Okay, guys. So this is all the time we have. I'm just gonna ask Elliot one last question, and then we're gonna say goodbye.
You bet. Fire away.
Yeah. Elliot, we have been terrible defensively. We've conceded constant shots. We've conceded the most shots in the top 5 leagues. And does bringing in those fullbacks that you said, and that combined with the lack of identity that we have in the middle of the pitch, in the forward lines, and at the back, how quickly do you think we can shoot Emery out of a cannon out of the stadium? I'm serious.
I mean, we could just let him go. We don't have to fire him out of a cannon. Look, I think the relevant question now is going to be, what do Raul and Vinay and Edu think of Emery quietly behind the scenes? Do they care about the football we're playing, or is it purely a results business? The challenge here is we are in third, and there may be a sense of, God, it doesn't look like it's working, but
it doesn't.
Do we upset the apple cart? I feel for Edu and Raul in a way, because there are a lot of signs that it's not working, but sacking a manager who's got you in the position you want to be in could go worse than keeping him there. So I think what we're going to see is they're going to take a good long look leading up to the holiday program, and with the fullbacks back and Lacazette back. But I do think that if the results and the performances don't start to turn, I think there could be a change by New Year. I really think there could be, and I think it's fair, because I don't know when we will ever get a situation where Spurs, United, and potentially Chelsea are all this vulnerable, all in the same season again. So our path to the top 4 is now. We have Aubameyang at the peak of his powers. We don't want to waste that. So yeah, I don't know about firing him out of a cannon, but I will say that that if things don't start to look better on the pitch and the results start to catch up with us, they have to make a decision very, very soon.
Fair enough. Yes or no question. Do we can make top 4? I see you struggling, Elliot.
I mean, should we make top 4? Yes. Will we make top 4? That's a much harder question, because I don't have a ton of faith in. I mean, the way we're playing right now, no chance, 0 chance whatsoever. Someone will get it above us. Maybe Leicester, but someone will. Chelsea and Leicester, you name it. But I'm gonna go ahead and say yes, we will just about get it figured out enough to do it.
All right then. Well, let's. This is the Arsenal Way podcast. You can follow Elliot at Yankee Gunner, of course you do, and follow his podcast Arsenal Vision at Arsenal Vision Pod. And it's been a pleasure, Elliot, having you. And I hope that you might drop by some other time as well.
Would be my pleasure. Thanks, Hammad. Thanks for the chat.